PFM Awards Leader of the Year 2024, IWFM Impact Awards 2022, Young Manager of the Year 2020, Global Diversity List Inspirational Role Model 2023, as well as Rising Stars of FM in 2012.
That's one of the best intros I've ever had.
I have never done the intro like that before.
About a year in, I had like 4 or 5 amazing names.
Yeah.
So Bulgari, Yahoo, Candy Crush, London Zoo as well. Christmas Day I got a call once because the reindeer had escaped in London Zoo. Santa had let the reindeer out.
You very quickly became a founder of Pareto 27.
Yeah.
Talk me through that.
I didn't have any funding, any backers, any support, any processes, any risk assessments, literally nothing. Me and a laptop in a bedroom.
That's crazy.
In August. I don't know all the answers here, but I can create an environment where you're going to thrive.
What was the learning curve that you went on in those first kind of 2 years?
You should be the biggest critic of yourself and your business. Don't let the bastards grind you down. I was the biggest critic of our business, and I was the one that held us to the highest account.
What advice would you give on the journey and on being present?
It was a real moment for me, and I was like, I need to get out of this situation. You should lean into it, and that's who you are. If that's your background, that's your background.
What I learned very, very quickly is no one fucking cares. If you were to nail it in a sentence, what is it that you'd say, this is what made me successful? This is the thing that I did that made me successful?
It's a deep question.
Welcome to the Future Workplace podcast. Now, the idea behind the podcast is that we bring together experts within facilities, within real estate, and we try to answer the question, what does the office or what does workplace look like in the next 5 years? What I then do is I bring experts on to actually have that discussion. Now, today's expert, I'm going to do this slightly differently. Normally, I just introduce the expert and we have a good conversation, but I am so buzzing about this particular person. I need to do the intro justice. I need to do it justice. This individual has won individual awards, PFM Awards Leader of the Year 2024, IWFM Impact Awards 2022, Young Manager of the Year 2020, Global Diversity List Inspirational Role Model 2023, as well as Rising Stars of FM in 2012. They're the individual stuff. We haven't even got into the business stuff yet. This person is the founder of Pareto FM, founded it at 27 years old, grew it from scratch to £50 million, and then had the exit. I am absolutely buzzing to welcome Andrew Hulbert. Welcome.
That's one of the best intros I've ever had.
I have never done the intro like that before, but when we did the research and we've obviously spot, I was like, I have to do the intro this way. Yeah, this is, and I could have gone on. We haven't even spoken about the business awards and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So, look, welcome. Thanks for coming in. And I, like I said in the intro, this is not going to be a difficult podcast.
No. The difficulty is keeping it to a reasonable time before people start turning off.
Exactly. But let's build the story for the watchers, for the listeners. We can relate, right, because of our upbringings. But let's build a story for our listeners, watchers. Take me back.
Right to the start. Okay. So, and it's actually, I just posted about this on LinkedIn today. So, council estate family. So proper. My nan was an evacuee in the, 1945-ish. Came off of there, moved out of East London, went to Oxford, where I speak all right because that's where I'm from. But moved on to a council estate called North Way in the 1950s in a caravan, by the way. Didn't even have a house to start with. And then went on to just build this empire from there, really. In the 70s, they ran the community centre. They had 3 kids, 11 great grandkids and all that sort of stuff in the end as well. But my family and growing up was all about community, helping people, food, all those amazing things. So that's my roots. The family started to move to the estate next to the council estate, which is where I ended up growing up. But pretty much every night, a car would be blown up in the field next to mine where it had been nicked and set fire to. So first, sort of up to the age of 16, I was getting into trouble. I was doing some stupid stuff and stealing bikes. And we used to love to break into the colleges in Oxford because we were never posh enough to go there. Genuinely, we used to carry a ladder around with us.
Wow.
And we climb over the walls and jump in.
Wow.
But no, I was smoking early, having sex early, drinking early, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And hanging around with other kids who were sort of from a similar background. And I had a moment when I was 15. I was in a park. 3 guys beat me up, nearly murdered me, and I nearly lost my life when I was 15 years old. Luckily, I didn't.
Yeah.
And actually, after that, I was very angry. I got into a bit of knife crime. And really, when I was 15 and a half, 16, I had an opportunity to go and get back the person that had beat me up when I was carrying a knife and things. And he wouldn't have seen it coming and I would have killed him.
Yeah.
And but luckily for me, I didn't take that opportunity, which is a 6'3", very angry 15-year-old boy, was very close, and I didn't go down that route. Luckily, didn't have any kids very early either. As we go on to learn, children are very restrictive as time goes on. So that was the first sort of 16 years of my life. And then all of a sudden I got into sixth form. And I went to sixth form, and I happened to be in one of the best normal schools in the country, like top 30. And all my friends from the council estate are left behind.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I met all my white middle class mates who were all going to go to university, and they had 2 parents and they had good jobs and all that sort of stuff. And they had aspirations. And I guess before the age of 16, I didn't have aspirations. But between the ages of 16 and 18, I did. Now, look, I was very good at organising things, and I could buy alcohol from the age of 15. So I was very popular. And all I did was network with the private school girls who had big houses. And between the ages of 16 to 18, we had parties at their houses almost every Friday night. And I had a calling card that after I left a party, I'd always go to the freezer and steal a pizza. That was your thing. And I'd eat it for breakfast the next day. And that was my calling card. But my theft sort of stopped at that stage. I ended up going to university. I ended up going to university. I went to University of Essex. I studied business. And I met my wife on the very first day of university as we went in. We've been together 20 years now. And university was great for me. I had a year of pissing about on the first year, getting drunk every day and all that. But years 2 and 3, I started to get my shit together. And my wife was an incredibly good boundary for me to make sure that I wasn't doing anything too stupid and that she would always be there. On one night, I did drink far too much. We went back to our room. I was sick all over her, and she managed to stay with me after.
And you're still together?
Only just. And my room smelled of cherry sours for a long time after that. So no, look, that was the first sort of 18 years, got to university. And then I came out of uni and I wanted to do an internship. And I came across this facilities management business called Rollright. And I was linked together with them through the Shell Step scheme. And I went and did 8 weeks in facilities management. And I learned all about this sector that I'd never heard of before. Finished my degree, got my first, and then I went and joined them full time. And that is how I got into the world of facilities management.
Isn't that crazy? Do you know what's mental about this whole story? And there's loads of mirroring of my own life, you know, and what's mental is about the fact that you've almost become inspired by the environment. You mentioned your white middle class kids, and they were aspiring to be something, and then that just completely changed your mindset. And I have the same sort of story, but my inspiration when I was a kid was a guy called Gary, and Gary Senior, and my inspiration was because Gary had Nike Max trainers. But the point I'm trying to make here is I could only see that as success. We didn't have people who were aspiring to be something and work for big companies. We didn't have any of that. We had the factory in the town. But later transpired is Gary's dad was actually a drug dealer, and the reason they had Nike Air Max trainers, good money, lots of disposable income. The reason he had Nike Air Max trainers because Gary's dad has sold a bunch of cocaine over the weekend or whatever. But one thing I'd love to do now is to go back to these underprivileged schools and just go, Gary's dad doesn't need to be your inspiration. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And that, for me, you know, what you just mentioned there kind of resonates with me. Well,
look, it's a similar story. So look, my mum was in a supermarket for 30 years as well as raising 3 kids. And my dad was in a factory for his entire career. He went to the factory when he was 15 years old. And he came out when he was 62, so like 46 years later or whatever, when I gave him £250,000 in cash so that he could leave and he'd step back. But actually, I remember when I was about 17, Gap hoodies were all the rage. But a Gap hoodie was £50. There's no way my family could afford a £50 Gap hoodie for 3 kids. So my dad got some off the back of a lorry, but they were fake. And and I was already 6'3", and I put this thing on. It about came up to my belly button, and I remember my mates all had them, and I went in wearing this one that was very short. They just took the piss out of me because I was wearing this fake Gap hoodie. And so I think we all have our inspirations differently. And I guess I was lucky. Nothing before I was 16 affected the rest of my life, apart from all the stories. And everything after 16 to 18, I fell in with the right crowd, and that was just lucky for me because I do believe your circumstance and where you grow up and what your background is and who your friends are, you can't really choose that when you're up to that sort of age because you have no reason to, but you should lean into it. And that's who you are. If that's your background, that's your background.
And I think you're right. For years, I was denying it. And it's only we've spoken a little bit offline, didn't we? But it's only relatively recently that I've gone, do you know what? Fuck it.
Yeah.
It is part of it.
Yeah.
And so
yeah,
it is what it is.
Yes.
So you left uni, you got into facilities management, almost found your way into it and figured out this whole new industry. You very quickly became a founder of Pareto, 27.
Yeah.
Not a lot of years between the end of uni to starting your own company. What talk me through that?
Well, so I started at Rollright full time. I must have been 21 when I started there. And I only knew hard work because that's where my family had come from. My dad did 60 hours a week in the factory and my mum was doing 3 jobs. So I just threw myself into it. And I was on 18K a year when I started, I remember. And they gave me a Ford Mondeo as a company car. And I felt like I was a king driving around in that enormous thing.
Yeah.
I just started being very busy for them. And they just gave me more and more and more work. And there's something in business where they say give work to busy people. So I could show that even though I had no technical skill set and I had no real like management skill set because I was learning it all, they could give me responsibility and I would take it. And in our family, it was very much if you said you were going to do something, you'd do it. Or if someone needed help, you helped them. You would put yourself out. So very quickly, I just started to rise through the ranks.
Yeah.
And I started in commercial, so I learned all about numbers and profit and sales. And then I went into operations. By the age of 24, I had a team of 250 underneath me. I looked after all the operations, self-delivery of everything.
Yeah.
I still didn't know what I was doing at 24, but I was a director at the age of 24. And the only way I could get on with people was to be respectful to them.
Yeah.
And say, look, I don't know all the answers here, but I can create an environment where you're going to thrive. And these were normal people on normal wages from normal backgrounds, like I was from.
Yeah.
And actually, I just really clicked and it just worked. We got bought out. So Rollright got bought out when I was 24 by a big German business called Bilfinger. No issues with that business, great business, but they were an 8 billion turnover business and we were 10 million at the time. So I went from being the king of this castle to being absolutely nobody. And I did 2 years in Bilfinger. And in those 2 years, what Rollright had was destroyed.
Right.
Because they were a big company. And these little clients that we had, they didn't want to be served by a big business. They bought a little business.
Yeah.
So literally, this is true. When I was 27, I'd gone out with the senior guys. The German guys were over, been to a nice steak in Mayfair, got drunk with them. And I looked around and I thought, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I actually don't know what. I'm saying to myself, Andrew, why are you in this cab? You don't like these people. You're not learning from them. You don't respect them.
Yeah.
Why are you here? What are you doing?
Yeah.
And so I went home and I got home the next day and I said to my wife, I said, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to go and start my own business because I think some of those smaller businesses, that smaller clients, I think I can take a couple of those. They're not going to cause too much aggro because they're massive now. They're tiny.
Don't care anyway.
I don't think these big businesses are serving the clients very well. And I've learned enough. I've done it. I've self-delivered for like 6 years now. I know what I'm doing. She said, absolutely no way. We've just got a mortgage. We're going to have a family, all that stuff. And we had that discussion where she said no. And I said, you know me long enough now. I'm going to go and do it. And I went and handed 3 months notice in the next day and thought they'd put me on gardening leave. They didn't. They made me work for 3 months. And August the 8th, 2014, I was just me. Just started a business from
what was that like? Was that like, oh shit, the armbands are off?
Do you know what? I'm a bit of an upstart. I believe in myself. I have a lot of self-confidence in terms of business. I fundamentally believed big organizations were not serving small clients very well. Yeah. And I believed I could take a few of those to start up. That was an inherent belief. I had nothing that was apart from what was in my head.
Yeah.
But that's what I believed. So it wasn't that daunting. The main thing was I couldn't take a salary to start with because I had no income.
Yeah.
And we had a mortgage to pay. And we had a little bit of savings, but less than 10K, say. So, and the mortgage was, say, $1,500 a month. So it was a bit of a risk to do it. But yeah, I made a phone call on the first day, and which was Bulgari Hotel, who I'd worked with before. And I said, hey, Jeff, I'm starting up this business. Would love to have a chat about it. And he said, yeah, come in. Yeah. And we had a chat, and then we managed to convert that one. So like within about 2 or 3 months, I had a £200,000 contract that I was delivering, good EBITDA. And they were also paying quarterly in advance. So cash flowing myself from the very beginning on that contract too. And then I managed to get a consultancy gig where they were paying me to go to London 4 times a week. And I was consulting for a business. It gave me an office, gave me an address, gave me a place to have meetings with other people. Yeah. And then very quickly we won Yahoo. And then quickly we won Candy Crush. And like about a year in, I had like 4 or 5 amazing names. So Bulgari, Yahoo, Candy Crush, and then quickly won London Zoo as well.
Yeah.
and like the momentum started to build. At the end of year 2, we were run rating at £5 million turnover.
Yeah.
And so that's literally how it started. But I didn't have any funding, any backers, any support, any processes, any risk assessments, literally nothing. Me and a laptop in a bedroom.
That's crazy.
In August 24.
That's crazy.
And obviously we went on this mad journey after that point. But yeah, that's how it started.
That's mad, isn't it? And then hiring staff and managing staff and all that kind of stuff. How did you go from, because, you know, you looked after 200 people when you were a director of a company, big company, but small company, starting, worried about cash flow, building processes, creating processes. How do I send an invoice? How do I chase payment? How do I hire staff? Yeah. What was the learning curve that you went on in those first kind of 2 years?
I'm a really practical person, and like I get shit done. That's me. Give me a problem and I'll fix it. I'm a real problem solver, I guess. I wanted softwares that were all online. Everything was cloud-based. Even when we sold Pareto and it was 50 million turnover run rate, we didn't have a single router in the whole business. We had no IT infrastructure.
Everything was cloud.
Everything was cloud. And everything you could log into from your phone. And I remember we did the IT due diligence and they were like, where's all the assets? And we're like, we don't have any. And they're like, oh, well, what's your biggest risk? Well, if the internet goes down, we can't get access to anything. Yeah. But if the internet goes down, the world is going to stop.
Everyone's fucked anyway.
Yeah, they're not worried about their emergency light testing on that sort of thing. So I think like that, building those processes, I'd been really good with people early on. And because of my background and community, just for context, so every Sunday, my nan would host maybe 30 people at her house for lunch or dinner in the evening. It was compulsory. You had to go. Didn't matter what else you were doing. The whole family unit went. And it was just cheap shit food, but we all got together every single week without fail. And there'd be up to say four sofas in there and 30 people, that sort of scenario. So like that being with people and breaking bread and being together in community, that's what I knew. Yeah. So taking that into the world of business, that worked really well for me because then I could liaise with people on their own level. Yeah. And I was never trying to be some smart prick with the best clothes that was sort of driving the nicest car. That absolutely wasn't. As I became more wealthy and I did occasionally buy nice cars, I would never take them to business meetings or to sites because I didn't want to rub that in people's faces. So I had a good way with people, but also I was willing to work hard. Yeah. Even in roll right, I mean, this is true. I would sometimes do 100-hour weeks. On 18 grand, 20 grand a year, I'd work 100 hours a week. Yeah. And I wouldn't feel aggrieved about it. I wouldn't feel pissed off. If they called me out of hours, I would take the call. And you see how you start to build this ownership model. And we went on, Pareto got to about 550 staff in the end and about 50 million turnover roughly. So like these, you start to grow very quickly. The one thing I wasn't brilliant at is process, right? Because it wasn't necessarily about process. It was about getting stuff done. And I was terrible at going back and putting a process in afterwards. The thing you learn very quickly is entrepreneurs are great and like startup founders are great at doing certain things, but they're not great at everything. Yeah. So I brought in more senior people eventually. So people like Colin Kimber, who became my right-hand man on the operational side, he was a process guy. He was a health and safety guy. Yeah. So he'd be like, Andrew, stop for 5 minutes.
Just hold on.
Yeah, we're going to put a process in place. And I was like, but I don't want the process to block what we're doing. He's like, no, we can work around the idea. But we started to build it. We got our ISO accreditations quite early so that we could evidence that we were doing the right thing. Yeah. But yeah, I mean it. I literally built it all from scratch. The finance system, the payroll system, the hiring system, the HR processes. The key in the end is hiring good people that can do it. It sounds that's a really obvious thing to say, but hire people you trust to do it. Yeah. Because there's a lot of hiring that we do where you sort of think, are they good enough? Are they not? Are they going to do it? As a founding entrepreneur, you never believe someone's going to do something better than you because you're the best at everything. And that's certainly how I felt. But you need to have people that you trust them. And if you don't trust your senior team, you need to get rid of them.
And do you have a moment where you go, well, 80% is okay? Because I have this battle myself because I'm like, I'll just fucking do it. And I know it's done and it's 100% right. Bit of a wanky metaphor here. We have a cleaner, right? Cleaner comes round to my house. And hope she doesn't watch this. Cleaner comes down to her house. She'll clean the house for 2 hours a week. Yeah. And it's like 80% satisfactory. Yeah. But that's okay. Yes. So do you have that as a business owner as well when you're making hires, when you're like, it's not the way I'd have done it, probably 80% satisfactory, but that's okay because it took that 80% of work off of my plate.
Yeah. For me, no.
Yeah. But this is the reason I'm asking is because I'm battling with that myself.
Yes. No is probably a bit harsh. No and yes. In your top team. So in the end, I had 15 top team members, all who we gave shares to in the business. So they came part of the journey of success. By the way, that top 15, we never lost a single person in 10 years.
Yeah.
Every person I hired stayed for the entire journey. Many have left since then, but in my time, they didn't. That top team, I had to trust. They had to be 100%. I did not make any allowances within that. And look, I was a nice guy, but I was also a fucking hard worker. Yeah. So my expectations were through the roof for these guys. And even though we paid the salaries and benefits and stuff, if I gave them shares, I was like, look, you're going to be part of the success. I am going to expect you to work harder than the normal person. Yeah. So if I call you on a Saturday, you answer the phone on a Saturday. But if you want Monday off because your kid's sick or you're going to doing whatever, absolutely fine. Yeah. I'll be flexible both ways. Underneath that layer, where then you're now talking about, say, the other 95% of the business, I would be more tolerant of it's not going to be perfect.
Right.
But to some degree, as a selfish entrepreneur, I had a team of 15 people that were going to be dealing with that on a day-to-day. Yeah. You cannot find 500 perfect people to run it in a business. Yeah. Not everybody's 100%. Yeah. The 15 senior team that I hired, I wouldn't have changed any of them. They all played their role. They all did exactly what we needed to. But yeah, I wasn't always striving for perfection, but I would accept mistakes, but once. Yeah. I keep making the same mistake over and over again. That's really quite annoying. Yeah. And we should learn. Yeah. And on a personal thing I did, and I know many entrepreneurs will be like this, I never celebrated success personally. I held myself to the highest regard. Even when we ticked all the boxes, I'd never stop and say, oh, well done. Yeah. Every time we won an award, I'd never pat myself on the back. And we won nearly 50 in our time. Yeah. It was never enough until the day the money landed in my account. And then I was like, okay, Andrew, you've done it now, sort of thing. And yeah, you can sort of have a bit of a pat on the back for that. But I was the biggest critic of our business, and I was the one that held us to the highest account. And even if a customer wasn't complaining about something we'd done, if I didn't think it was good enough, I would complain about it. And say, guys, this isn't good enough. Yeah. The customer should be complaining about this. Similarly, if the customer was complaining about something that was completely ridiculous, we, in a nice way, we would push back a little bit and say, hey, come on. Yeah. You know, like, we've got 99.5% compliance, the 0.5%, let's work on together to fix. Sometimes you could push back, not always. So yeah, like for me, my standards were incredibly high for myself and for that top team. Yeah. And actually that team of 15 or so people, I would put them in the 90 to 100% range in terms of what they were doing for us. And it worked, and they lasted the whole journey. And some were here from year 2 and some joined in year 7. But you know, like they went through that.
We're going to bounce around a little bit here. Do you know what, mate? I haven't even looked at these bloody crazy. I was like, I knew this was going to happen.
Probably don't need
but we're going to bounce around a bit here because as I'm talking to you, I'm just like, that's really interesting. So you're a guy that has these really high standards, 100%. You're now out of the game. How do you have a mindset shift from like, this is the way that I work to now, which is I'm going to build a fire and I'm going to build a tree house. Yeah. And that's okay.
You have to keep setting new goals for yourself. Yeah. So we'll jump around, but when I came to exit the business, I'd worked with a business psychologist for about 6 weeks in the lead up. And what he taught me was a few things. Number one, you're swimming towards an island. And the island is when you get your money. Yeah. But at some point, you're going to be able to see the island because for 10 years, you haven't seen it. But now it's in the distance and you're going to get there. When you get there, what does success look like? What are you going to do? What's going to happen? I mentioned it before we came on, but a lot of entrepreneurs, when they exit, they go through depression because everything just turns off. And a lot of people think success and wealth is about going to the Bahamas and sitting on the beach for a month. Well, that's cool, but it's pretty boring after a few days. And actually, all your mates are at home and your family and everything. So I worked on maybe 4 or 5 things that when I was going to get to the island, this is what I was going to do. My other thing is I want to be the best at what I'm doing. Yeah. And I'm able to find things that are I'm a real completer, right? So I want to complete a task. I'll give you some examples. I am now one of the biggest blood donors in the world. Right. I donate blood every 15 days or 14 and a half days. I donate 3 bags every time I donate. You cannot donate more anywhere in the world. I can't give you a badge that says I'm the biggest, but I probably am because I'm 18 stone and there's plenty of blood in me. That's a real benefit for me. And every 14 days, I know I have to be ready to donate blood. There's certain things you can and can't do when you're donating blood, like drugs and tattoos and certain types of sex and all sort of stuff. You have to make sure you deliver. So that's a way that I still get my buzz of being number one. The other thing is I love to travel. Yeah. So I'm setting myself a task. I'm going to complete all of the EU in April. So I'll have visited all 31 countries in the EU, and then I'll go and do the European Union, and then I'll go and do Europe. Yeah. But that includes Belarus and Russia and starts to get a little bit more dangerous. which is like 48 countries or something. So I'm setting myself constant tasks. Now, I bought a farm when I retired because I wanted my kids to be outside and be there. So I really relax when I'm in that environment. We're just getting some pygmy goats now, so we're starting the animal process. But we built an enormous tree house, and I mean an enormous one last year. My dad and I love fire, so like I love to just go and get lost for a couple of hours burning things. Singed all my hair off yesterday, which will be on my socials at some point. But it's just all about like creating goals to achieve. 2 or 3 of the goals I had when I got to the island. One was I wanted to go on holiday every August for 4 weeks, which I have done for the last 3 years. So just go away for 4 weeks. Amazing thing to do because holidays for me were always very short. And for 10 years, I pretty much didn't go on a holiday. But I love going away for 4 weeks and not worrying about when you're coming back. No scales, eat all the shit you want while you're there. Just, you know, no one, you don't know anybody. Take clothes that are bigger so that as you get bigger, you're wearing them as the year goes on, etc. The second one was I love my family and my family is big. The biggest problem my family has is on Christmas Day now, there are 72 immediate members of my family.
Jesus Christ.
Council estate, they breed quickly.
Yeah, they had no TVs.
No one has a house big enough for 72 people to go. So last Christmas, and this was a big thing for us, I called all my aunties, who are the ones that run the family, and I said, I want to hire an entire hotel and I want everyone to go there for Christmas dinner and stay over for the night and drink, and I will pay for everything. But I knew that even though it's a lovely idea, it was changing the traditions of Christmas for many people.
Of course.
Anyway, they all said yes. So last year we hosted 78 people. We bought a whole hotel out for the day and night.
Oh, man.
And paid for absolutely everything. Cost about 15 grand. Well, it wasn't as much as you thought. Bought all the alcohol, literally everything. An amazing day and something we'll remember for a long, long time. And then also, now that we have the farm and we have a big space, we occasionally like to host. We're not big hosts generally, but the other idea I had was hosting like my own jamboree, for want of a better word, like a summer party. So we did it last year. So we got a huge hog roast. We got 2 bouncy castles. We got all these like face painting stands. We had like 150 to 200 people come to our farm that were friends and family and kids and everything. But you see, all of those are like goals that I could achieve and things that I could do. So that's how.
So you set them. You set them based on the vision of the island. And you started to put plans in place as to what you did when you got onto the island. I understand.
And I love going back to when I was 16 with the private school girls. I love organising things. So spreadsheets and organisations. I am really good at that. And because of my relentlessness, I can't stop until it's fixed. And so it's our 40th birthday this year, my wife and I. We were born one day apart, for anyone that believes in fate, and met at university, as I mentioned. We're going to host a 40th birthday party, but we're going to have a burger van in the day, and then we're going to have a pizza van at night, and then we're going to have all like disco and all this other stuff out in the garden in the summer. So like, it's just, I love getting involved in that stuff. I'm very, very fortunate now in my financial position that I don't have to worry about income. So I can get lost in all of those things and not worry about everything else. All I need to know is, am I there to take the kids to school in the morning? And am I going to be back in time to pick them up? And all the other stuff can happen in between.
And am I present? Right.
You know,
I can only speak for myself. Well, I was going to talk about that then. So, hey, I hope you enjoyed the podcast so far. I'm just going to take a quick 30 seconds of your time to explain to you one of the biggest problems that people have when it comes to fitting out their new office space. And that problem is they get AV in too late. When you get AV in too late, what happens is they treat it as an afterthought. They treat it as a bolt-on. It's a few screens on a wall. Let's just put some screens on and make it work. Massive, massive, massive mistake. And we see it day in, day out, where people treat AV as an afterthought. To try and avoid that mistake, you need to bring AV in, the design of AV in really early, as early as you possibly can. Now, to try and help you with that, we've put together what we called an AV bundle. It's a bundle. The link is in the description below, and it gives you the ability to configure your own AV meeting room so you know what solution you're putting in the rooms. It gives you a risk map for the project so you know when to bring AV in, and it gives you a budget calculator so that you can budget AV in early as opposed to later when you realize that AV, frankly, isn't as cheap as what everybody thinks. So grab the bundle below, get AV in as early as you possibly can, and avoid the mistakes that lots of our clients actually do when it comes to refitting their offices. It's what advice would you give? And you know, I'm almost asking this as my own advice as well, given that I'm on that journey. What advice would you give? Because everyone, the founder, the entrepreneur, they think of the exit, they think of the island, right? And a lot of people have said, look, don't forget the journey, because the journey that you're on is really important. You need to be present. Don't forget you've got kids at home. Don't forget you got a wife at home. You need to make time for all of that. What advice would you give on that? We're all we're born from the same bread, right? We're all driven to find the island. What advice would you give on the journey and on being present?
I can't pretend I was brilliant through that journey because I just worked. And I really mean this. There's nothing glamorous about what I've just described in the last 10 years. I would pretty much, before we had kids, I would have Saturday afternoon off.
Yeah.
And my wife and I used to argue because my wife did ballet on a Saturday. But I wanted Saturday afternoon off because I like watching Final Score. I like football.
Yeah.
But usually I go around to my mum's house and I just fall asleep on the floor. Every hour outside of that, I was working. My wife would say to me, well, why can't you just take Sunday afternoon off? Because I'm not at ballet on a Sunday and we can go and do something together. I'm like, my mind is just, I can't switch off on a Sunday because Monday is
ready for Monday.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm working and I was doing invoices and all sorts of stuff early doors. So that was quite hard. And I can't pretend I was a brilliant husband and a present father all the way through because work just took over. I always had my phone in my hand, 100% of the time. In workplace services like we do, offices and things don't close at 5 o'clock and everything's fine. Issues happen 24 hours a day, especially when you're looking after a zoo with 20,000 animals in it. Issues happen all the time.
And like, the visitors there at the weekend.
Well, the thing is, they're business at the weekend, and that's when you have the fewest team on site and everything. I always remember on Christmas Day, I got a call once because the reindeer had escaped in London Zoo. Santa had let the reindeer out. Absolutely. And that's a really romantic story in all that sort of stuff. So, I think like as I'd gone through, I was just relentless. And with us, we had 2 private equity exits. We had one in 21 and then another one in 23. In 2021, we made about 20 million quid through the exit. And this is all online, all this information. And so I took a big chunk of money at that stage. Bought my house, secured my family's houses, did all the stuff I wanted to do. And my wife was like, is that it now?
Yeah.
And I was like, not quite, because I'm going to go again, but I'll give you 3 years. I promise you it'll be 3 years. Yeah. And lucky 2.5 years later, we exited and made a significant amount more than we did the first time. And that's how I'm in the position that I'm in now. But my problem was being present. Now, my advice, and I wouldn't have taken this advice when I was in it because I was just too headstrong and determined, put your phone away.
Right.
The phone is the key, or the laptop or the telly or whatever. One of the biggest things I've done since I've finished is my wife and I reconnecting is just spending time with each other without any tech.
Yeah.
So if we go out, we're very lucky now. We drop the kids off at school, go to Bicester Village near where I live and have brunch, right?
Yeah.
A nice place to go. We both leave our phones in the car. And then we have to go and get one to pay because no one's brought a debit card with them.
Damn it.
I promise you, and I'm not a relationship expert, I'm not a marriage counsellor, I promise you those 45 minutes of just chat that you will have is such an amazing way to reconnect with each other. I was awful at that. And then the other thing was children, if you manage to have them, and some people have kids, some people don't, and look, whatever works for you, but being present with your kids and clearing your mind and being interested in what they're doing. And I definitely, at times of high stress, I would react more harshly on the kids than I needed to. If they were doing something wrong, I would tell them off worsely than they should have been told off for it. But like my relationship with them has changed entirely in that time. And I remember when my daughter was about 2, so I was in the thick of everything, I put my phone down and she couldn't even really speak yet. She went and picked my phone up and put it back in my hand. Because she was so used to me.
That's what she saw.
Yeah, that's what she thought. And it was a real moment for me. And I was like, I need to get out of this situation. And 18 months later, we'd sold. But so like, for me, just deliberately create the opportunity for you to do it. The other thing that worked for me really nicely, I used to do a little bit of journaling at the end of the night. So I put all my own tech away. This might be 10 or 11 o'clock at night, depending on how the day had gone. I just write some stuff down, like bad stuff that had happened or lessons that I'd learned or things I wanted to reflect on or things that were stressing me out on that day. And do you know what's amazing? When you look back 2 weeks later, you're like, oh, what was I stressed about that for? Yeah. But almost like, and it's a pen and paper in a pad that you've got a little booklet that you keep going back to. And on the 5 days when we were selling the business, and we knew that the deal was getting very, very close, so I did a little bit every day. And I look back at that sometimes because things are happening on different days, the pressure that you have. So put the tech away, make deliberate time to spend with the people that you love. Could be family, wife, kids, whatever, friends, all those different things, but be deliberate about it. I didn't do it. I've been with Heather, my wife, for 20 years. And I say for 9 years, I wasn't there. And actually, I'm very, very lucky because many entrepreneurs go through divorce as well, men and women, because just one of you's fucking selfish.
They're not present.
No, which I was.
Yeah.
And actually, if I wasn't careful, my wife could have fallen into the arms of somebody else because she's going to get that attention from someone.
Is there an argument there, though, where you go, the not being present gave me the life that I've got now, so now we can reconnect? So it's a short-term pain for a long-term gain.
If you can live by that philosophy, yes.
Yeah.
But in the moment where I remember at times my wife was saying, come over and do this. And I'm saying, I can't because I've got to go and take this business opportunity.
Yeah.
There's only so many times you can do that to somebody before they want to move somewhere else. Now, look, we spend more time together now than we have done in the last 9 years. The last 2 years.
Now she's like, piss off and go and do that.
No, it's absolutely right. Go and build another fire. Go and do something else. But like just the warmth that we have, the intimacy, the presence, just everything is significantly better now.
Yeah.
And my relationship with my kids is just unbelievably good.
Yeah.
And like every single morning, my daughter runs in, jumps on me, gives me a cuddle. I've slept for 9 hours, right? I'm an amazing person.
I love that.
I've slept for 9 hours and my diet is under control. I spend time with them. I go swimming. I do their homework. We go on the quad bike. We pick fruit. We make jam. Yeah. Amazing, amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
For me, fuck the sports cars. Forget everything else. Yes, I live on a nice big farm and I'm very lucky, but that's not what makes me rich. It's the relationship I have. And the other point, probably for men in particular, the easiest no I had was to my friends for a long time. So when they're like, hey, Hulbert, come into London. We're going to do this on a Friday night. Guys, I can't. Firstly, I can't get there. Secondly, I can't be drunk because on Saturday I can't be hungover.
I'm giving blood on.
Yeah, giving blood. Haven't even seen my wife, you know, for like all this sort of stuff. And I went, so probably 4 or 5 years, I was a really shit friend to them. No, I wasn't nasty. I just wasn't present in the friendship. I sold up. I got them all together. I said, look, guys, I'm really sorry. I haven't been here. Like, I want to reconnect. They're like, oh, but we didn't even notice you'd gone anywhere. That's what boys are like,
Your banter's
right?
shit anyway.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, that's we didn't really care. But so now I organise holidays with them, and I don't pay. We all pay our own way. We're not trying to do anything flashy. But we've been to Budapest and Vienna. We've been to Naples and Rome. Yeah. Just 4 or 5 lads just going away, and we're all nearly 40 now. Yeah. Most of us have got kids. And as someone says online, you know, that hiss of the beer on the train where you're just being silly again and like having that space, there is absolutely magic.
I love that.
And you only need 48 hours.
And you do. I mean, I've just got back from snowboarding with my mates. With this snowboarding trip's happened for 18 years. Yes. Every year, same trip, same boys.
Yeah.
And I said to Maxine, my wife, when I got home the other day, bear in mind, my wife's got two-year-old twins at home and she's potty training them, so she probably didn't appreciate me coming back and telling her how good snowboarding was. But I was saying, when I got out there with it, and I don't see these boys, I see them once a year on this particular trip, and they're all older than me. They're all in their 50s. I'm the young pup. I'm the young pup, business owner, entrepreneur, doing all right. Yeah. They are all retired military guys, happy on their little pension, happy, right? Yeah. And I'm in the scenario, in the environment, I'm still a young pup. Yeah. And they still hammer me. And I'm like, this is fucking brilliant. Yeah. And I absolutely love it. Yeah. And I get nailed for being the young lad.
But isn't that amazing to feel that way and do it? Yeah. Also, you know, as you go through and you become millionaire, you obviously meet other millionaires and all that. You go into this different sort of group of people. But one of my mates, he has a ski chalet. We go there every winter, usually when it's not being rented out, and we just spend some time together. Another mate has a flat in Marbella. So we go to Marbella for the summer. You only need like 2 nights. Yeah. And actually just to get away, either to get some snow or to get some sun. Yeah. And I find that really powerful. And like for my own thing, and also with my mates in particular, they could not give a shit about the money. No. They literally don't care. No. And if I ever try to pay for anything or do like whatever, Hulbert, put your money away.
It's not been a flashy bastard.
We don't need it. We knew you when you were 15 and you were passing out because you were so drunk.
You stole that pizza.
And literally, and one of my friends, Frat, when I was a kid, it was my 19th birthday. We'd gone out, got really pissed, and as we were coming out of the club, I'm like, Frat, I'm going to be sick. And he gets 2 pint glasses, and I'm sick into each pint glass. And he reminds me of that story. I don't care about the tens of millions, Andrew. It's literally not important. And so like, I just think that never forget that sort of thing and like, the connection that you have. And I talk about kids and family and mum and dad and my friends, but we all are connected to different people. Yeah. So my advice would be, who are you when you're so busy that you're missing out on something, who is it that you're missing out on that you feel like, shit, this is really where I should be? Yeah. And I don't mean some wanky nightclub where there's some there's some famous people that you might want to meet. I mean, like at your funeral, who is it that you want there? And my nan that I mentioned that was started on the council estate, she just died last week, right? Which is very sad, but she's 93 years old, right? She had an amazing life. And I know her funeral when my grandfather died. So there was about 270 odd people that came to that funeral. One of the biggest. He had no money, but he ran the community. He was a great guy. He supported loads of kids that were orphans, and he got them presents at Christmas and all that sort of stuff. And he brought the community together. That is wealth.
That's it. That is
richness.
That is.
Shouldn't think about death too much, but something I worked on. The reason I used the money I got the first time to buy my sisters and my mum and dad and our house and everything, and my kids, I got a couple of houses each too. If I died the day after that, everyone was okay.
They're fine.
Yeah. Almost like the second tranche of money, the big money, that was almost for me.
Yeah.
That was almost like, right, I've gone out as a family unit. I've gone away for a while. I've made enough money to secure everybody.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to go back and do it for myself.
Yeah.
Although my wife is on the edge and I'm saying, give me 3 years and I'll do it. But that's how I thought about it. It was always about trying to help other people.
And that is wealth. And if you look at people like Tony Robbins, in fact, I'm reading one of his books now after watching his Diaries of a CEO podcast a few weeks ago. Yeah. And Daniel Priestley, we spoke about Daniel Priestley, and we spoke about other people. Chris Williamson's another one. The more I watch those sorts of people, the more they're like, forget the fucking money, mate. Just, live your life. What's rich for you is not necessarily going and meeting Joey Essex and bloody and getting pissed and all that kind of stuff. So 100% get it.
But if I can, the one challenge with social media, certainly for younger people, is you look at other people's lives on social media and you think that's the life that I want.
Yeah.
I'll be happy when I get there.
Yeah.
And Chris Williamson talks about it a lot. Like, you've already achieved things that you thought were going to make you happy. That just isn't true. Stop chasing someone else's version of success.
Yeah.
Like, I mean it. Write 3 things down. Like, what is the success for you? And fuck everybody else.
Yeah.
The sooner you can do that, get rid of all your insecurities and just focus on what you want. So like that's it. And like, so for me, one of those was paying for that Christmas Day meal that I just mentioned.
Yeah.
That's huge success for me. Someone else may say, well, that's 15 grand wasted. I don't care.
It's not.
Because for me personally, that's the story that I wanted to be able to do and to tell. So, and the other thing, as we just talked about before we came on, a lot of people on social media have huge social media teams behind them. So if you're not getting as many followers or as many likes or as many interactions, whatever, probably you're not spending 10 to 30 grand a month on your social media team as many people are.
Yeah.
So don't compare yourself to those people.
Yeah.
If you're spending 30 grand a month on social media and still fucking it up, then yes, start challenging yourself, but you probably not. Yeah. And actually we're brought up in this world now. I'm trying to protect my kids against it so much, but they'll be in it in the end.
Yeah.
Just don't believe everything that's online. And also, I'm fortunate enough to have met many of the sort of senior people who have lots of followers. They're not all that when you meet them.
Let's go back to Pareto. So you mentioned a minute ago the people, really important. The point of the podcast is to talk about what the future workplace looks like. We're in this world where it's hybrid working, there's AI. No one really knows what's happening with AI. You mentioned earlier about the twats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You've been a massive advocate for culture, diversity, creating an environment where people want to go.
Yeah.
Talk me through that. Where does that come from? Your upbringing, from this community that you had? What's the importance of considering? Forget the workplace.
Yeah.
What's the importance of considering the people?
Do you know where it actually comes from? When I was at Rollright, one of the first clients I delivered to was Sony PlayStation in Marlborough Street.
Right.
And they used to have a bar down. I mean, this is 2010, a long time ago. They had a bar downstairs. And what really struck me was after people had finished working upstairs, they'd go to the bar downstairs. Yeah. And I was like, oh, why are people staying behind in their workplace? I think the industry and businesses in general still need to change their mindset a little bit. The office is not a place where people go to work. The office is a place where people go to interact and create and be together. And I just think, like, my upbringing was very diverse and I had experiences in all sorts of different stuff. But in a workplace now, you may have someone who is 19 years old and someone who is 69 years old. That is a 50-year gap between them. Now, what the 69-year-old want and what the 19-year-old want are very different. You cannot create like just this perfect environment where everybody is there all the time. But the point is that there's a 50-year gap in people's ages. They have different diverse backgrounds, they have different interests, they have different community expectations. Some of them might expect to get drunk in the office. Some of them might think alcohol in the office is the most offensive thing that you could possibly imagine. Yeah. But my whole point is create an environment where people want to go. And like, I worked with so many amazing big brands in my time. What I found was great. Those brands that were able to create different areas that basically would support different types of people. So Twitter, when we were at Twitter in 2016, upstairs on the 6th floor, they had this hidden bar. and through this glass door, and you went through the bar. Now, firstly, to go in there, you couldn't take your phone or laptop.
Right.
And secondly, all the alcohol was free.
Yeah.
And you could drink anytime. Didn't matter what time it was. And I remember they used to have these massive barrels of cocktails that they'd make every day and just help yourself. Even as contractors, we were able to drink it. That's true. And I mean, early days of Candy Crush, they had a spirits trolley where they were pushing the trolley around and people were doing shots at their table on a Tuesday morning, which we did some as well. But look, that's not for everybody. And alcohol is a very complex subject within the environment. But for me, workplaces should have different spaces for different people to work. Now, someone like me, I like it when it's loud.
Yeah.
So when I'm most productive, I would want to be productive. I'd go to a coffee shop and it would just be loud.
Yeah.
And I'd just be on my laptop and all that noise around me would almost stimulate me to work. But for other people, that'd be the worst environment they could be in. So creating these different types of environments, and also like AV, right? So as you get older, your eyesight is not quite as good. And like my hearing is going at the age of 40, I know it is. So great AV and great visual and audio is so important to make sure you create the right environment for everybody. And like accessibility for people, don't ever forget that.
Yeah.
Because just because I'm in my 20s, my hearing might not be as good as someone who's in their 50s, for example. And don't sort of strike me off just because I'm not at a certain age. So change the mindset that a space isn't for people to go and work. It's a place for people to go and collaborate and be humans together.
Yeah.
And what I saw in Sony PlayStation in 2010 was exactly that. The other thing, when I was studying at university, I remember reading a white paper from Xerox, and this stuck with me the whole time. In the 1980s, Xerox realized that the best knowledge that was shared between their printer engineers was at the water cooler in the office.
Yeah.
And that's a famous story, but that is 50 years ago now. We knew 50 years ago that John and Dave, who just come back from fixing a printer in some corporate office somewhere, shared more knowledge over a glass of water in the queue than they did in any formal process. So create the chance for the water cooler opportunities to happen. What COVID took away from us was those incidental meetings. And I come on to a networking point, which I think is quite good as well. But those incidental meetings don't happen now. Unless you bring everyone back to the office, and you have the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday twats, like we say, and actually, so now Monday and Friday, you've lost 40% of that tacit knowledge sharing. It's similar to networking. So networking for me is not about going to an event, meeting 50 people and throwing your card at each one. It's about having maybe 4 or 5 really nice, in-depth human conversations with each other. And the most powerful time of any networking event is as someone leaves, if you walk out with them and walk to the tube with them, they've probably had a glass of wine. They're starting to decompress. They're starting to think about, oh, what's my husband or wife or whatever doing at home? Starting to think about their life again. In that sort of like 90-second walk, I think that's the most valuable time to create an interaction with somebody, because you're a human to human.
And you're not in a networking environment.
No, and you're not trying to pretend you're something else. And you're not sharing business cards. So, and funnily enough, I gave a talk for Global Women last couple of weekends ago. And I told that story. As I walked out, a woman called Janet came up and said, "Can I walk you out?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, of course. Come with me."
Oh, brilliant.
And Janet is launching her own AI product around how to improve viewings on estate agents. Really good idea. A product called Theo, but she needs a couple of $100,000 to get it off the ground. She walked me out. The fact I even know that story, there were 100 people in the room. I don't know what other businesses are being raised in there, but you know that listening. And
you'd spend that 90 seconds listening to that Theo story.
You would. And to some degree, socially, where else can you go?
Yeah.
Because you're walking out and you do it. So yeah, like that sort of networking environment I'm just describing, trying to make sure the workplace is that.
Yeah.
Still, I remember as a kid coming into facilities management, I worked with a lot of investment banks, and some had trading floors and some were just offices. I remember there's like a building with 1,000 people in it. I'm like, what are you all doing? I actually can't understand what you're doing.
Yeah.
The reason I love facilities management and property is, firstly, we get to piss about on the roof. So when everyone's sat in their offices at their desk, we're on the roof.
That's like your Oxford days. You take your ladder.
Yeah, take your ladder and get up there. And also like just walking around thinking, I couldn't be sat at a desk all day. How my dad was in a factory for 46 years straight in the same place. I could not do that, as many people couldn't. So yeah, that's how I think about the office.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And lots of the conversations that I had, the whole this podcast started as, how do we bring people together to talk about the physical environment and the decisions you need to make around carpets and furniture and this. What I learned very, very quickly is no one fucking cares. Yeah. What are you trying to do is you're trying to create an environment where people actually do want to go to. Yeah. And another thing I learned a lot was this hybrid working thing. When I went into this journey of the podcast, I was thinking to myself, the Gen Zs are all going to want to work from home. It's the complete opposite. They want to be in. because they want to learn, and all the things you've spoken about. You wouldn't have been a director in 4 years if you hadn't have been sat there learning from these guys. So,
but the other issue is loneliness.
Yeah.
The latest studies are showing 1 in 4 young people who work from home are lonely. Loneliness isn't an issue. Well, I mean, it is. Loneliness isn't just an issue when you're 60 to 70 as your friends start to die and you have less interaction with people. Loneliness is also now when you're 18, 19 and coming out of school or university or whatever.
Especially the COVID people.
Yeah, especially the COVID people. And there's a lot said. So the COVIDs was the alpha generation. You now have the beta generation that's coming back in again. So you've got X, Y, Z, A, B.
Yeah.
There's some school of thought that the betas, because they're not impacted by COVID, they'll actually overtake the alphas in their careers. Because the alphas have got the chip on their shoulder about working from home. But the betas will come in, forget that, and say, oh, why are they being so lazy at home all the time? I'm going to be in the office. I'm going to sit with the directors and meet them. And like I said, with the networking, walk around to people, have the water cooler chats. Yeah. If I do a lot of mentoring. If I'm mentoring someone who's 18 to 24, be in the office.
Yeah.
Like, because presenteeism works.
Yeah.
And it's things like flattery works on every level, right? Yeah. Just like be there, tell directors how good they are, kiss their ass, right? Believe in all of that to create your own opportunities. And I studied a lot of Japanese business when I was at university. And even things like leaving a coat on the back of your chair when you're not there makes it look like you're doing more. It's all these social cues.
Yeah.
And in Japanese culture in particular, it was like if you fell asleep at your desk, it was considered a positive sign that you've been working very hard and working the night before. And so I just think there's human nature and presenteeism are very real. And if you can create more of those cues to happen, I would do personally. And yes, maybe don't go on a Friday because that's not it. But even doing things like going to the socials or being part of like diversity groups or being part of like the drinks on a Thursday, whatever, you don't even need to drink alcohol. Just go there and be part of it. Because I think people drop their guard and you create more humanistic things. I think just partly the problem, we've forgotten that everyone's humans. We put so much nice, like looking things and nice tables and nice tech, but we're just people at the end. Yeah. We create so much hierarchy in our capitalist society that we're in. And I never really liked that. I always just, I've gone on a complete tangent, but something I did a lot of was skydiving in Pareto. So we did 100 skydives.
That's San Diego. Sorry, Pareto. Sorry, I thought Pareto. I thought you meant Pareto. Paris something.
Yes, I know. So my business Pareto, we did 100 skydives at that time. And the reason I did skydives, and we invited all our clients to do it every year, I did about 10, was because it didn't matter how rich you were, how senior you were, how whatever, you were shitting yourself. You're going to jump out of a plane for 60 seconds before the parachute opened. And for 60 seconds, you're going to die. Yeah. And if that parachute didn't open, that's it. It was all gone. It was a complete leveler. And I really, really enjoyed that.
I loved it. I did my free fall licenses.
Oh, did you?
My last year. Yeah. It was kind of my leaving present from the military. Yes. So all my mates all went parachute instructor. They went that route. Nice. I went physio and leg rubbing. Yeah. And as part of my leaving present, the boys went, look, we'll get you on your licenses. So they flew me to San Diego, Paris. Wow, okay. And I spent a week there doing my free fall licenses. I've never done it since. Yeah. But
we were just doing tandem dives. Yeah. And I remember it was shortly after Novichok had happened, you know, where
the Salisbury one.
Yeah, and I remember jumping out the plane and the guy goes, oh, look, that's the building where the Novichok was.
Jesus Christ.
But yeah, like you got guys on your back. The last jump I did, he'd done 22,000 jumps, this guy. Oh, man, that's ridiculous. Put it in how have you done 22,000? Because I do 16 jumps a day, 6 days a week. And I've been doing it for however many weeks. Oh, my God. And you're like, well, you haven't died yet. So the 1 in 22,000 chance that I'm going to die today, I'll take that risk.
Well, you talk about presenteeism.
Yes.
You have to be present.
Honestly, like there's a feeling of gratitude you get when you get to the bottom. Yeah. But yeah, you see, I was always trying to create different things that were differences and stories and everything. And it with certain customers, I'm actually trying to get the more high profile entrepreneurs out there at the moment. I'm starting inviting them to a group skydive. Yeah. So I thought, who's had a load of like very successful entrepreneurs together, all jumping out of a plane? You imagine the insurances that would be on that.
Oh my Lord, yeah.
And,
Jesus.
But yeah, so it was all about sort of trying to create those opportunities. And I think about the office the same way, create the opportunities for people to
What's next? Like, what's next for you? You mentioned the island, you're on the island at the moment. Yeah. What now?
So right now it's children. Yeah. My relationship with my kids is where my internal focus is and my battle is. My daughter's 6. She's just starting to get to that point where I'm not as cool as I used to be. Yeah. So if I want to hold her hand going up to the school gate, it's 50-50 as to whether she'll say yes.
Don't say the Bentley.
Yeah, no, we don't even have a Bentley. I did have a bright yellow McLaren, but I sold it in the end. So it just felt like too much of a knobhead. Yeah. And also, I have rugby thighs. You don't fit in those sports cars very nicely. Children is my focus. Continuing to be present as a husband and a father and a son is important to me too. I've started podcasting a bit, so I'm starting to tell the story. I may end up writing a book.
Yeah.
I'm the chair of the Institute of Workplace at the moment, so I'm promoting the sector and helping that. And I have a real commercial focus, which would be no surprise. But the IWFM hasn't made a surplus for previous 6 years. The last 2 years we have done. So I've been really focusing on trying to make sure that the members are looked after within the sector. I'm doing a little bit of consultancy for people that are looking to exit.
Yeah.
But I'm in no rush. Yeah. Everything's cool.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate with the level of passive income that I have that now I don't need to force myself to do anything. So I genuinely can. If someone says, hey, do you want to come and do this? I can make a decision based entirely off of, do I want to do it?
Yeah.
There's nothing else.
Hence why you're sat here in front of me.
And actually, but I think also, like, if you're not careful, you can really start to get caught up in a load of stuff again. And even when I put my mind to it at the end of last year, I started podcasting. So, of course, I was relentless. I was like contacting every single podcast I could, making loads of friends, doing loads of networking. And I think between like something like the 15th of November and the 15th of December, I did something like 25 podcasts or something. Relentless. And I started getting busy again. And I was missing some of the drop-offs. And I was sat there telling the story about, I take my kids to school. I was like, well, that day, actually, I didn't because I'm here talking to you.
So then you're saying, well, hang on a minute.
Yes. And in some of them, I was even calling myself out saying, well, I'm saying this to you, but if my wife was watching this, she'd say this isn't true.
Yeah.
So like, I think I'm trying not to get too busy. Yeah. But as a very competent, organized, entrepreneurial person, it's quite easy to get busy again.
Yeah.
I may end up writing a book because I've got lots of ideas around like book stuff. But to be honest, I don't really have a plan.
No.
The plan is I'm on the island. I'm with the kids. I'm not trying to prove anything. And one of the most freeing things I can say, I have nothing left to prove to anyone.
Yeah.
And if you can get, and I had a chip on my shoulder for sure. If you can get that chip off your shoulder, that you don't have anything to prove on a day-to-day basis, I find that really freeing.
Yeah.
And actually, like, it means I can spend time with people and enjoy it and not have the phone and be present and listen. And, I was always bad at forgetting things, but I remember a lot more than I did now. And presents are like a lot more thoughtful because I haven't just gone on Amazon the night before and shit myself and stuff. So, and sleep. Yeah. I don't boast, but like that 9 hours of sleep, it makes you a different person.
Yeah.
I slept 4 or 5 hours a night for 9 years.
Yeah.
I wasn't a nice person at times, especially when I went on that 500 calorie a day diet and lost 9 stone in the lead up to the sale.
That is brutal.
Because then I was hungry. I had no sugar. I had no carbs. I had no caffeine. I had no alcohol.
Due diligence going on at the same time.
No. The thing is, what would often happen, by about 8 o'clock at night, my body just gave up and I'd fall asleep. So we put the kids to sleep at 7. I'd fall asleep about 8. They would have to ring me about 10:30 at night to wake me up. And I set up, because I was selling, I set up an office upstairs in my house and a separate bedroom. So I said to my wife, like, I just need a bit of time where I'm going to fall asleep at 8 o'clock. I don't want to disturb anything else that's going on.
Yeah.
They're going to call me about 10:30. I need to go and do some more work at that time. But I pushed my body to the absolute extreme, which I wouldn't recommend, by the way, but that's what worked for me. And that was entirely mindset. This is before Manjaro and all the surgeries and everything that you could have. So that's still how I focus on it. But I do not have an ounce of worried about depression at the moment or feeling like regret or anything. I'm just in the moment.
Yeah.
And I have nothing to prove. And that's an amazing place to be.
It is. And look, you've done this whole journey, council estate to, the kind of, the classic rags to riches story, right? And people are on that journey and people will watch this and read your book when you've written your book and they'll be inspired by that. We need to round up because I'm interviewing in an hour, so we do need to round. And I really don't want to, but because this conversation is just, I can relate to a lot of it, but we need to round up. But rags to riches story, everything that you've done, director within 4 years, £50 million business, 2 exits, private equity twice. This kind of like full circle moment of being present, the wisdom that you've got. If you were to nail it in a sentence, what is it that you'd say, this is what made me successful? This is the thing that I did that made me successful.
It's a deep question. I'll go back to a phrase my business studies teacher used to use when I was 14 years old. And he said, don't let the bastards grind you down. And what I mean by that is don't compare yourself to others. Hold yourself to the highest account, you versus you, whatever's going on in your brain. You should be the biggest critic of yourself and your business, and just forget and cancel out the noise of everybody else.
Yeah.
That is really easy advice to give. It's very difficult to live by. But anybody, even if you got 1 million followers on social media, you go and find someone with 10 million followers. There's always someone better than you. There's always someone worse off than you. Forget about all of that. It's that internal monologue. I'm not religious. I'm not spiritual, but I believe in these conversations you have in your soul in here. And I just don't forget your inner voice. And only your inner voice should be the one telling you off. You have the devil and you have the angel on your shoulder. You know, it's that conversation between all of you. So don't let the bastards grind you down. Because if you do, you're just going to get lost and you end up trying to follow someone else's success. Work out what success is about for you.
Andrew, I've absolutely loved this. Genuinely, I don't say this to everybody. One of the best podcasts I've done. Thank you for coming on, sharing your story, sharing your wisdom. And I wish you the best of luck on your island.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate your openness and our ability to swear in the conversations. And I've been hugely inspired by the story that you've told today as well. And I have no doubt in 5 years' time, there'll be someone else sat in that chair and you'll be telling all the wisdom and you have your book coming out and all that sort of stuff. But no, really appreciate it.
I wish you the best of luck. Let me know. Great. Hope you enjoyed the podcast, and I certainly enjoyed having that guest on. Now, in order for us to close this podcast out, what I want to do is just highlight to you that we're an AV company. That's pretty clear. But what we do with a lot of our clients is we offer them showroom visits, basically. So we quite often go around a lot of the showrooms that are available to us. We're doing a big LED showroom visit. So if you want to come and see some of the latest LED technology that you can deploy within your meeting room, we're doing a big LED showroom visit over the coming weeks. The date's not fully confirmed yet, but we have put together a wait list. The link to that wait list is in the description below. If you're interested in coming along and seeing the latest LED and what you can deploy within your office space and the art of the possible when it comes to LED, click the link below, join the wait list. When we've got the date confirmed for our showroom visit, we'll then invite you to that showroom. We'll show you what the art of the possible is. For now, hope you enjoyed the podcast. Like, subscribe, click the notification bell so that you see the next one as well.